Grab your coffee, kick off your shoes. It is time for Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz and Fairness. I have coffee, iced tea, and a protein drink here. So grab whatever you really want this morning. Hang out with us. Look, I'm a beverage goblin. I make no bones about that. Like, I've got 5 different cups on my desk right now. So I will stay hydrated and somehow resist the temptation to tinkle. Okay, Caroline Fenton, now that I've worked tinkle into the first minute of the show, you're welcome, America. Let's start the show like we always start with 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
You are only human, Fitzy. A man's got to tinkle when a man's got to tinkle. All right, let's get some U.S. Open news in here. On Wednesday at the Open, Novak Djokovic, the 24-time Grand Slam champion, faced American qualifier Zachary Spida in a greedy second-round battle at Arthur Ashe Stadium. So the number 7 seed started pretty shaky, dropping the first set in a tie-break 6-7 as the 22-year-old, the young gun Spida, brought serious heat and was backed by that local New York crowd. But Djokovic, despite visible frustration never has happened before, and some physical struggles, he flipped that script. He found his rhythm. He took the next 3 sets, 6-3, 6-3, and then finally 6-4. So the 38-year-old, who is chasing a record 25th major, my goodness, he leaned on his experience. He studied the ship after a mid-match trainer visit for a toe issue. So Spida pushed hard and even sipped some pickle juice to fight cramps. Pretty good remedy, I will say. But Djokovic clutch play and key moment secured his spot in the third round against Cameron Norrie. So a hard-fought win for the absolute certified living legend. Yahoo Sports Daily will keep you posted on all things U.S. Open as we advance throughout the tournament. But for now, the GOAT, only time will tell what comes for him.
Pickle juice, by the way, spectacular for cramps. Also, pickleback shots,
really
spectacular. It's just like it's too early for a pickleback shot.
Spectacular for blackouts.
There we go. Oh, perfect. All right, let's get to the next point. The first thing on my mind this morning, got a little bit of golf action for you. We got answers to questions everybody needed to know. Wednesday morning, U.S. Ryder Cup captain Keegan Bradley revealed his 6 picks for the 2025 showdown. And here's the thing. Like, all week we've been, is he going to play? Is he going to play? Nope. He's just going to be the captain of this thing, ending any speculation and real fun that we could have had about playing as a captain for the first time since 1963. That's right. Usually, for anyone that's not keeping up on this, if you're a captain, you don't also play. But the problem is here, they could really use his skill set, as Michael Collins broke down with us earlier in the week regarding this particular team. They could use that skill set. If you missed that interview, check it out on YouTube. It's right there for you. So, who is going to be on that team? Well, we got Justin Thomas. We got Colin Morikawa. We've got Patrick Cantlay. We've got Sam Burns, Ben Griffin. And then Cameron Young. We've got the automatic qualifiers. You see them there. Scotty Scheffler, J.J. Spawn, Xander Schauffele, Russell Henley, Harris English, I should say, and Bryson DeChambeau. Frankly, we just all want the personality and energy that comes with Bryson being there anyway. So, despite the strong season, Bradley says he's not going to play. The most telling part of this is that he told us the decision was made weeks ago. He already figured it out, even though there was some pressure and some conversation. Should he play? Will he play? Won't he play? Apparently, instead of just giving us the decision when he had it, we would build the suspense even further. So let's see what it means that he's captaining and not actually playing on this year's team. All we can hope is this works out for the best for the Ryder Cup, which is something we will cover here for you on Yahoo Sports Daily every single pass along the way. So we'll make sure that you're caught up on everything you need to know. Caroline, that brings us to our main point. It was a stacked, racked, loaded night, especially if you are a massive fan of the playoff standings in the National League. It was a big night for Major League Baseball, right? Like, we are at the scoreboard watching segment of the year, right? Like, we've got all this competition between big brands trying to figure out where they fit, not the least of which was Shohei doing Shohei-like things for the Dodgers. Absolutely epic night. Strikes out 9, earns his first win of the season on his bobblehead day, no less. In fact, his first credited win as a Dodger, because he had to get through 5 innings to do it. So, huge night for Shohei. He came out on the mound after a couple of, let's say, shaky, you might say stinky starts. Mm-hmm. He came out and absolutely took all the stinky away and was the dominant player we know him to be last night.
I would just like to know how much those Shohei Ohtani bobbleheads are going for on eBay. Like, I mean, north of $500? $1,000? Could you pay your rent with the Shohei Ohtani bobblehead? We will check at the break. But yeah, I mean, you said it. The last couple of starts for Shohei, they've been stinky. I mean, he gave up more than 8 runs in each of those last 2 starts, or in those last 2 starts combined, I should say. So it's been shaky at best, I think. And I think that's fair to say. Look, Shohei is still recovering from his surgery. And I think that was obvious in his last couple of starts. And he's talked a lot about, or at least the Dodgers organization has talked a lot about, kind of this slow recovery period. His curveball is absolutely positively lethal, and he only threw that about 11 times in his last 3 starts. Last night, he threw it 17 times, and it was the last pitch in 4 different strikeouts last night. So I think we're starting to see Shohei, the Shohei Ohtani, the ultimate two-way player, elite guy on the mound, start to come back after we haven't been able to see it since that UCL surgery that he underwent last season. So I think the Dodgers just got better. And when Shohei is playing at this level, the Dodgers are better, which is so incredibly annoying for baseball fans of any other team not named the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers are one of the best teams in Major League Baseball, even when Shohei isn't pitching like he did pitch last night. But if Shohei can keep up consistent performances like he had last night, I mean, the Dodgers are even scarier than they already were.
Let's talk about consistency for a second, because they beat the Reds last night. The significance of that is they become the first team all season to sweep the Reds in a series. That's right, the first team all season to do it. And it's their first 4-game win streak since the 4th of July. This team's been a little bit up and down. And you mentioned consistency. I want to look at the 4th inning particularly for the Dodgers. In the 4th inning, every single Dodger got up to bat. And here's what's amazing. Every single batter that got on didn't get anything more than a single. So what do they show you? I know everybody loves the long ball. That's all we talk about. But the Dodgers also showed you in the 4th inning that they are willing to beat you by a death by a million cuts, right? Like, there is some element of this Dodgers team that the more that they find themselves, the better they're going to be. Their bats worked the way they needed to be. They showed they could be patient in this entire lineup. They go in and they do this. And now look at what's upcoming, right? If you look at their next 5 series, they're all against teams that are sub 500 right now. The Dodgers have the runway to go on a very significant run. And you're talking about what you already said, one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. But when you look at the course of the course, 28 days left in the season, when you look at how much time is left in the season and who the Dodgers have left on their schedule, if Shohei gets hot, and this team continues to play the way that they're playing, especially with the patience that we saw last night when they're up to bat, I just look at this Dodgers team and I say, okay, like, hot at the right time, superstar that can get you through innings whenever you need them to, a lineup that can beat you a bunch of different ways, and about to take on a bunch of teams they should be able to beat. Like, there is no reason this Dodgers team isn't a World Series favorite at this point moving forward. We already knew that, but now they're finally showing it consistently on the field.
Plus 360 odds to win the World Series. I think that's a pretty fair bet, right? And yeah. I think with the Phillies losing Zach Wheeler, you feel less and less confident about that. The Milwaukee Brewers, though, they just simply cannot lose. I mean, they are the best team in Major League Baseball right now. But my question about the Brewers that I do not have about the Dodgers is, do they have what it takes to get through the longevity and the grind of baseball postseason? I think the Dodgers do. And I think we can trust the Dodgers, right? They've earned that trust. The Dodgers have the depth to be able to get through the grind of a postseason. That is my question about the Milwaukee Brewers. But I do want to keep going through some of the baseball that we got to see last night. The Mets blanked the Phillies 6-0 last night.
Panic. Like, Phillies fans are losing their minds right now.
They're losing their minds.
Everything went from it's perfect, it's golden, we got this, to suddenly like Kermit the Frog running around with his arms flailing in the air and everybody's panicking. I love this. Like, I love chaos. So all I kept thinking about last night was like, this one outcome, Caroline, total chaos for Phillies fans.
And I think that's just unfortunately kind of been the story of the Phillies over the last couple of years, right? They are right there. They look like they are equipped to be the best team in baseball. They look like they are equipped to be on a championship run, and then they just get, off the tracks at some point. And I feel like the Mets too, so many times throughout this season, it's like that scene, whatever movie that was, when they say like, why won't you die? Why won't you just go away? that's the Mets. That every time the Mets feel like they're feeling themselves and they just get brutally kind of brought back down to earth. And it's kind of this, ebb and flow and zig and zag. And just when you think the Mets might be dead, they come right back. And of course, it's one game. And of course, you're going to take everything kind of for face value. And it is much more looking at the forest than it is the individual trees. But it feels like the Mets could be getting the mojo that they might need.
Oh, you're being way too calm. Okay, look, I'm going to go back to my 80s wrestling background. Yeah. So like 80s wrestling fans will get this. Maybe Caroline pop culture, you'll remember this. But like Hulk Hogan, right? R.I.P. Hulk Hogan, when he was getting beat in the 80s, they put him in a sleeper and they'd hold his hand up and it would hit the ground. One. They'd hit the ground twice. And if it hits the ground the third time, he'd lose. But right before it hit the mat, he'd just start shaking and the arm would start coming up. That's what the Mets are doing to us right now. Like the Mets, the arm was about to go down. Everybody was about to call this thing done. And then all of a sudden they get this series sweep over the Phillies. Think about the impact. Like if you win this series, but you don't sweep the series, you only pick up a game in the standings, right? So that's a little impact.
Yeah.
By getting this sweep, and you get this sweep with your young ace, like Nolan McLean is taking over at this point. He had 8 big boy innings on this one. If you look, he faced the minimum number of batters through 6 innings. He only threw 55 pitches to clear his way through 6 innings and basically say, no, not you, fat Jesus. Get out of here. Like, that's what he did
Insanity.
To the Phillies over and over and over.
Gosh, you fat Jesus.
Well, I mean, that's my hangover reference. No, the Phillies didn't just get beat in this series. The Phillies got shellacked in this series. Different ways each game. They got outscored 25-8. I mean, that's a run differential of no, you don't belong on my field. That's what we're talking about. And speaking of fields, by the way, Citi Field, like the Phillies should be banned forever from Spill. That's 10 straight over Philly at Citi Field. This is a nightmare for Phillies fans. And I'm sorry, if you're a Mets fan right now, you got your chest poking out a little bit because you're feeling like, hey, we made it through some weirdness this summer, and now we're just like, all of a sudden, it's like one of those movies where she has glasses and she's not all that cute, and then she takes glasses off and suddenly she's beautiful. That's the Mets. 10 things I hate about you happening to the Mets right now.
I just don't know how. Look, I don't want to understate the uptick that the Mets are currently on. I just have a really hard time.
You are understanding. Go ahead.
Have a really hard time trusting this team too much because it was not that long ago that they lost 7 straight, 8 straight. That they were kind of, I mean, the Mets a lot of times are the butt of a lot of jokes in Major League Baseball. Ignore the Cardinal stuff that I have behind me. But they were the joke of Major League Baseball at the beginning of this month. And then they go out and lose the series to the Washington Nationals. And look, no disrespect to the Nationals, they're not necessarily the class of the league. Now, look, you take the wins where you can get them, especially the dominant wins that came in the fashion against teams like the Philadelphia Phillies. But I just have such a hard time trusting this team too much to get too high on one series. But if you're going to get right hot at the right time, right now is the time to do it. String together a few more wins. Be a little bit more consistent because the Mets, especially in the month of August, have been the face of inconsistency.
Look, you just gotta let yourself love again, Caroline. That's the real thing here. If Taylor didn't let herself love again, would she have found Travis? Like she's been. Look at how many famous people burned Taylor, and all of a sudden she had to let her heart be open. Like, look, I know this didn't go. Like, if we're looking at this as a long-term relationship, there was a period here where Mets fans, I think they were a little in their feels, and I get it. But if you're going to go through the downs, then you got to allow the ups to happen. If you're going to go through the valleys, allow the peaks to happen. By the way, do want to get one other big playoff outcome into the conversation here because, frankly, we just got to talk about what's your new nickname for him? The Big Dumpy, the Big Dumper,
Big Dumpy.
Okay, I don't know how I feel about that.
Dumpy McDumperson.
Okay, that's a lot of dump. The Padres do take out
Good morning.
Big Dumpers.
Welcome to the Dump Show.
The Mariners. The Mariners lose 4-3. Weird game. Weird game in the sense that it felt like the Padres were out of this thing, and then they scratched and clawed their way back at the very end. Had a shot in the end to still take this thing down, but the Mariners get a big win at this point, and it's a huge loss for San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego's going to have to pick up every win that they can possibly get. But look, I think that one thing that I'm looking for in the Mariners, and obviously, pennant races are a massive thing. The race for October, that is going to be at the top of our conversations that we're having. But I'm also looking at the AL MVP race. Like everything that Cal Raleigh can do, every win that the Mariners can pick up here along the way. I mean, obviously, Cal Raleigh's already made history. He's the first primary catcher in the history of Major League Baseball to get to 50 home runs in a single season. And if he continues doing what he's doing, he will start eclipsing Ken Griffey Jr., the legend in Seattle, for a single season home run race. So what Cal Raleigh is doing individually is historic. And I think that Cal Raleigh should be AL MVP, at least from what we know of right now. But I think that, whenever you're competing with a Yankee for anything, especially for AL MVP, as Cal Raleigh is kind of competing with Aaron Judge in the MVP conversation, I think the Mariners need to do as much as they possibly can to maintain kind of that sexiness, at least in the eye of the national media and the voters.
Yeah, the Mariners are becoming a better and better story every single week. I will say, if you're the Padres, you got to get better out of you, Darvish. Like one day it's good, one day it's bad. You need consistency out of your starting pitching if you really want to be able to contend in the National League. I do know we'll be watching the scoreboard every single day. All right, from Major League Baseball news to the NFL news and notes, somebody not watching his bank statement anymore. Kyle Hamilton got that bag. He got that money, 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 money. We'll tell you about it next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Breaking All-Pro safety Kyle Hamilton and the Ravens reached agreement today on a 4-year, $100.4 million extension, the largest for a safety in NFL history. The deal includes $82 million guaranteed, which surpasses the previous record of $45 million for a safety. Like 82 to 45, that doesn't just surpass it, that laps it, that makes it look silly. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Look, Kyle Hamilton, clearly the best safety in the NFL, Caroline?
I think so. And I think the amount of money that he's getting, not just the contract, 4 years, $100 million extension, it's also the guarantees, $82 million in guaranteed money. He's the highest paid safety in NFL history. I think it shows that Kyle Hamilton is the best safety in the NFL. I think this contract shows not just one big year I think it also shows the past 2 years that Kyle Hamilton has been one of the best safeties in the National Football League. So it's consistency. It's year over year proof of concept. Now, look, Jesse Bates, I think, is absolutely in the conversation as one of the best safeties in the National Football League. Brian Branch in Detroit, Xavier McKinney with the Packers, all kind of in this conversation. But I kind of defer to Pro Football Focus sometimes whenever I look at grades, because there are certain positions that, I'm not an offensive lineman. I can't evaluate an offensive lineman. I think that I would be incredibly disingenuous if I were to grade a single, performance of an offensive lineman. So I'll look to Pro Football Focus sometimes, and you take their grades, of course, with a grain of salt. But Kyle Hamilton was the only player to earn a Pro Football Focus grade of 88 or better in both run defense and pass rush. Kyle Hamilton is such a do-it-all kind of safety. He is such a kind of a jack of all trades and a master of all trades at the exact same time. So I think it's the contract that's showing that the Ravens acknowledge that he is the best safety in the National Football League.
Also, the Ravens coaching does a great job of putting him in the best situations. And that's not to belittle the player at all. Like, I think this is a very, very special moment where the organization realizes what they have, and then they figure out how to utilize him to the best. Like, he has a chance of being one of the best safeties we've ever seen. All right. And then this year they add Malachi Starks to that safety backfield. Like, they have a real chance
to continue
to be special. Yeah.
It's not fair. Like, when the Philadelphia Eagles just continue to draft some of the best defensive players in college football, I'm like, why do we keep letting them get away with this? It's the same thing adding Malachi Starks, who was one of the better safeties that we've seen in college football over the past couple of years. We add him to this defensive backfield? What the heck?
Yeah, there is no doubt. That's not the only big NFL news, by the way, from yesterday. Some Chiefs news, speaking of AFC Super Bowl contenders, in the form of Rashee Rice. Looks like Rashee Rice is going to be without the Chiefs, I should say, will be without Rashee Rice for 6 games. They've agreed on a 6-game suspension for Rashee Rice. And Caroline, this raises a really interesting question about what happens for the Chiefs for those first 6 games of the season. So as he's violating the league's personal conduct policy, that's where it comes from. It kicks in at the start of the season. Who's going to be that guy for the Chiefs for the first 6 weeks of the season?
It's fair to say Xavier Worthy now, taking that next step forward. Xavier Worthy was the Chiefs' second leading receiver this past year. I can only believe that another year in this offense with Patrick Mahomes continuing to kind of build that rapport, that he just takes that next step forward, because that's the kind of player and guy that I think Xavier Worthy is just getting better and better, and at least in his young NFL career. But overall, Fitz, am I being overly laissez-faire if I don't think that this not having Rashee Rice, obviously what Rashee Rice did is a big deal, but am I being way too laissez-faire if I say I don't think this is all that big of a deal if the Chiefs don't have Rashee Rice the first 6 games of the year? I mean, he was out 13 games last year for the Chiefs, and they went to the Super Bowl. Yes, you'd rather have Rashee Rice. He's their best receiver, not named Travis, true wide receiver, their best receiver, not named Travis Kelce. I think the Chiefs are going to be just fine without Rashee Rice for 6 weeks, albeit a tough schedule, but they're going to be fine.
This is that 2 things can be true moment, right? I think what we have to acknowledge here is that, yes, Rashee Rice makes the Chiefs better. And when we get into the playoffs and the best teams are facing the best teams, and certainly you want to have Rashee because you need every weapon that you can possibly have at your disposal. Now, might they lose a game or 2 in the first 6 games because they're missing Rashee Rice? Maybe. But ultimately, who cares? This is a Super Bowl contending team no matter what. That's what we've learned. As we've said repeatedly, and I will continue to echo, the score for Patrick Mahomes, the record, I should say, for Patrick Mahomes in 1-score games is mind-blowing. So the only way you beat the Chiefs is if you blow them out. So, okay, no Rashee Rice is going to make it tougher to score. Do you still think you're going to blow out Andy Reid and the Chiefs? I don't. So, yeah, might they lose a game or 2? Sure. Am I going to panic about that? No. The narrative that the Chiefs are broken, we need to learn from that. We talk about the Chiefs a couple of years ago, didn't look right. Well, then they win the Super Bowl. Last year, all year, it's the Chiefs aren't. Look, the Chiefs could have gone 16-1 last year. That's a down year for the 16-1. The normalization of the greatness of the Kansas City Chiefs is one of the stupidest things that we're doing right now as a football culture. Sometimes you just got to step back and admit, hey, they've got the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, clearly the best quarterback in the game right now. They've got one of the best head coaches of all time, clearly the best head coach in the game right now. They have one of the best defensive coordinators of all time, and clearly the best defensive coordinator in the game right now. Okay, so yeah, they're going to be missing Rashee Rice. So what? Now what? I don't think that this moves the needle at all because the Chiefs are still going to be a Super Bowl contender. I still think Rashee Rice could miss more than 6 games, and I still think they would win the AFC West. I still think that they have a real shot at home field advantage, and even if they don't get home field advantage, I still think they can beat anybody when they've got him particularly. So at the end of the day, it doesn't change my Super Bowl thoughts on the Chiefs.
And I'm 100% with you. And I just want to state for the record, that has nothing to do with Rashee Rice. Like, I don't mean any sort of disrespect to Rashee Rice when we say this. This is not diminishing the talent of Rashee Rice and what he adds to this team. But when I look at the Chiefs dynasty that is still ongoing, and I give like a credit pie to why the Chiefs are currently in a dynastic run. Patrick Mahomes has a massive slice of that. Andy Reid has a massive slice of that. Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, like all big chunks of this credit pie. Rashee Rice is in there, but he has a little sliver of the credit that I give to Rashee Rice for this dynastic run for the Chiefs. Again, nothing against Rashee Rice and his abilities, but I have so much confidence in this organization, in that quarterback, in that head coach, and their proof of concept of winning. Their proof of concept of winning that they had last year without Rashee Rice for a vast majority of the season. So if I have so much confidence in all of these pieces that don't include Rashee Rice, then not having Rashee Rice in the first 6 weeks of the season is not overly, concerning to me for the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs can go 4-2 in that stretch in the beginning of the season. They can do that with Rashee Rice, and they can do that without Rashee Rice. And if they go 4-2 in that 6-game stretch, the Chiefs are still very much so on track to be exactly where they want to be, and that is squarely right back in the Super Bowl.
Let's the boys have the schedule. Let's pull the schedule up, and we'll take a look at these first 6 games, and we'll just kind of go through it and figure out win, loss, where all of it looks like, because I think you're right about this. So the Chargers, they're still going to beat the Chargers, right? Like, do you agree?
Yeah, I would put my money on the Chiefs. If the Chargers beat the Chiefs week 1, would I be floored? No, but I would say the Chiefs can win that game.
So then you get the Eagles. That's a tough matchup even with Rashee Rice. So I would personally take the Eagles there, but I would have taken the Eagles with Rashee. That doesn't change it.
Right. I would agree. It is better that the Chiefs get that game at Arrowhead. And can you imagine a Super Bowl rematch, how loud that stadium is going to be? I would agree with you. I still give the Eagles a slight edge, but don't underestimate that that post-Super Bowl loss mentality that I think this entire Chiefs team is going to come out with. I'll take the Chiefs in that game. I'll take the Chiefs. I think they're 2-0 going into week 3 in New York, and that's a game that they should win. 3-0 heading into week 4 against the Ravens.
And the Ravens, look, even if I give the Ravens the edge here, so right now I've got them at this point, I've got them 2-2. You've got them, what? Do you have them beating the Ravens or losing to the Ravens?
I have them losing to the Ravens. I think they split those Eagles-Ravens games. So if I have the Chiefs beating the Eagles, I'll take the Ravens in week 4. So I think the Chiefs will be 3-1 going into week 5. You said 2-2 though. You're going to take the Giants week 3?
No, I'm taking the Eagles and the Ravens to beat them. So the Eagles and the Ravens.
Got it. Okay.
So then the Jags, that we both believe they beat the Jags, right?
Yeah. I think they beat the Jags. And I have some question marks about, all of the brain power that the Lions have lost in losing both of their coordinators this past offseason. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to beat the Lions at home. So I have, in that 6-week stretch, I have the Chiefs going 5-1.
Yeah, and I have the Chiefs going 4-2. So, because I agree with you, the Lions game being at Arrowhead, it's outdoors. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean for golf? Also, as I've said a million times, right now I am cautious with the Lions either way. So, okay, no Rashee Rice. We get him to 4-2 or 5-1, depending on which. Like, okay. And then, frankly, I just have to say this loudly. The Chiefs could start 0-6. I don't think there's any team in the NFL more capable of going on a run of winning 11 straight games than the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, look, they have been in the AFC Championship game every year of his career, of Patrick Mahomes' career, for a reason, right? Like they're capable of going on such a wild run, Caroline, that I just can't press panic. Like it feels like every year we're looking for a reason to panic about the Chiefs, and then everybody's wildly surprised or disappointed when they're back in the Super Bowl. And to me, if you start the season with a more realistic expectation, like, yeah, Kelsey's going to be sort of slow in the beginning of the year because he's holding back. He doesn't need to worry about anything. The offense is going to look like it struggles. They're not going to do the little things the way you want them to do the little things. You're going to look at it and say, how did they possibly win these games? Like, that's what happens every week. So I feel like if we accept that as normal coming into the year, nobody's surprised 6 weeks in when suddenly they start a run.
Yeah, and it's not going to be pretty, but it will be beautiful. I mean, how many games like that did we see from the Chiefs this past season? That sometimes they play with their food, and then all of a sudden it's it's a tie game. It's a 3-point ball game going into the fourth quarter. All right, like let's actually put our foot on the gas and go out and win this thing. I don't love the Chiefs schedule though, that their two quote unquote most winnable games do come away from Arrowhead at the Jags and at the Giants. When you get your quote unquote easiest games away from home, there's not really any sort of reprieve. But still, even with that, with the trip to Brazil, even with the trip against the reigning Super Bowl champions, even with the game against the Baltimore Ravens, I think one of the best teams in the National Football League, I still think the Chiefs are 4-2 or 5-1.
Yeah, we agree on that. Speaking of going on the road, that's exactly what Notre Dame is going to have to do this weekend in a huge ranked-on-ranked matchup in college football. We'll break it down for you next, Yahoo Sports Daily. History on the line in the 305. Notre Dame is 0-6 in Miami, losing their last 6 games, I should say, averaging 16.7 points per game, allowing 21.8. All of this will come to a head on Sunday. We've got a massive weekend of college football. I'm telling you, if you want to know why the joy is down in the heart of Caroline Fenton and myself, Jason Fitz on Yahoo Sports Daily, it's because this weekend is loaded. Like, it is loaded with college football destination games that you're just going to sit down and say, you know what? I'm going to order pizza from like the 18th place this weekend. I will take the wings, a side of ranch, and blue cheese just because I want variety, and I'm just going to eat all of it. Caroline, one of these games Sunday is this ranked-on-ranked matchup. We get number 6 versus number 10. Notre Dame is currently 6 at Miami, number 10. A lot of question marks for both of these teams. So the question I ask you is, who you got in this game? Why?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. Well, when you're doing
part of the show.
kind of the quarter, yeah, I know. when you look at the quarterback comparisons, it's pretty crazy when we make these comparisons, right? It's Carson Beck, who just 1 year ago we were talking about as a potential first overall pick, and now we're wondering, like, does Carson Beck stink or not? To the phones. So I think we're obviously talking about a career renaissance in a way for Carson Beck as he transfers from Georgia to Miami, and then C.J. Carr at Notre Dame as a redshirt freshman who's taking on his first start in college football, and he's just trying to have fun out there. So the quarterbacks, I think, are wildly different, and I would say overwhelming advantage from what we know right now to Miami and the quarterback situation. But I think roster-wise, overwhelming advantage to Notre Dame. Like, Miami's defense was absolutely horrific, dreadful, and like rude. It was so bad. It was like it was rude to the game of football. How much more can a defense be overhauled in just one offseason? So for that reason, I am going to take Notre Dame. I do not think it is going to be a very pretty game. I think that Notre Dame wants to keep it very low scoring. I think Miami wants to come out of the gates and score early to force CJ Carr, this young quarterback, to have to throw the ball around the yard. But ultimately, defense wins championships. I came up with that. You can trademark that. And I have to take Notre Dame's defense and their run game, and Jeremiah Love, who was a massive part of what Notre Dame did last season. He comes back. I think that he's even more so a bigger part of this offense with a young quarterback getting acclimated into this team and into this offense. So I take Notre Dame because I trust their defense so much more than I trust Miami's, not just Miami's defense, but more than I trust Carson Beck.
Yeah, this is all about Carson Beck. And if we're being honest, look, I was talking to a couple of people that follow the Notre Dame program closely, trying to get a sense, because Notre Dame has a new defensive coordinator. So what does that mean? Well, it means a couple of things. Schematically, it's going to be different this year. And so they expect a lot of different coverages out of the back end of the defense, which is important. 3/5 of that secondary returns from last year, and they added DB that played some at Alabama last year. So they've got plenty of talent in the secondary, and you're mixing up coverages that are hard to prepare for. So now I've got a quarterback that I don't trust at all, that I think is just flat out inaccurate, right? And then all of a sudden, drop balls were part of it last year.
Carson Beck?
Yeah.
Let's be fair here, though. Let's be fair. How many incompletions that Carson Beck threw last year were his fault when they had a receiving core that led all of college football in drops?
Yeah, it was a historic number of drops for a receiving core.
Yeah.
How much of that is the wide receiver? How much of that is Carson Beck putting in a wide receiver in a situation where he might get murdered coming over the middle, too? So, I think some of that flies in the face of Carson Beck. Carson Beck's fine, but he's not a great defense beater to me. So you've got a defense in Miami that I don't trust against a defense that is going to be game planned in a way that I don't think Carson Beck can properly prepare for. I actually think Notre Dame rolls in this game. I know people keep telling me it's going to be close, and I hear you. I think it is kind of low scoring, but I could see this being the sort of game that Notre Dame wins 20-7. I think they win by at least a touchdown, and I think that the ugliness of turnovers is the thing that really captures everybody. Now, Notre Dame has a new quarterback of their own, right? So that's obviously, and how much do we trust the car? All of the car analogies. That's a real question, though, here, when you've got a kid coming in at quarterback with a lot of expectations. And we've got to look at the fact that there's so much on the line for Notre Dame in this. As you and I have talked about before, when you talk about the college football playoff, man, Notre Dame needs to get a win here because they don't have a lot on their schedule that gives them runway moving forward, right? Like, they don't have a lot of ways to change whatever the popular perception becomes from this outcome. So I think there's actually a ton of pressure on Notre Dame, who I think can make the college football playoff, to turn around and win this football game.
But also, neither does Miami. Notre Dame, I think, doesn't get enough credit for how difficult their upcoming schedule is. I mean, not only do they have Miami in week 1, but they also turn around and host Texas A&M in week 3. They also go to Arkansas, which I know Arkansas isn't necessarily world beaters, but that's still on the road at an SEC team. Notre Dame also hosts Boise State. Now, Boise State was a playoff team last year. Without Ashton Genty, can Boise State kind of recreate the magic that was last year? We will see, but still right now they're a top 25 team coming off of a playoff run. I mean, USC, I don't think USC is going to be anything great, but USC is still, a legitimate program. We'll see what Lincoln Riley can do in year 4, but I think Notre Dame has a harder schedule than Miami has. Yes, Miami opens the season, obviously, as we're talking about with Notre Dame. They host Florida. But other than that, they avoid Clemson in the ACC. They avoid North Carolina in the ACC. We'll see what that Bill Belichick experiment looks like. But they get Louisville, solid team, not a top 25 preseason team. They get Stanford, which I don't know how successful this 1 year Frank Reich experiment is truly going to be. They go to Virginia Tech. They have South Florida. I like Alex Golish a lot, their head coach at South Florida. But overall, all of the entirety of these two schedules, I think Notre Dame does have more opportunities to prove themselves as a college football playoff team more than Miami has. I think Miami has Florida, and that's their big opportunity to prove that they can be big time contenders.
Yeah, I just don't believe I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't believe Miami is going to be in the college football playoff discussion. I think that this is I don't trust Carson Beck, and I still don't trust this defense. I think Miami is going to be an okay football team that finishes the season on the brink of the top 25, but not anywhere near the top 10, right? So to me, the college football playoff, I'm already eliminating Miami. I think, like you mentioned that Florida matchup, I like Florida a lot more this year than I like Miami. So before anyone makes that an SEC bias, I just think Florida's better built right now. So Florida, I think, takes down Miami. Notre Dame takes down Miami. Now, all of a sudden, you're asking for the ACC to be sort of the reason that they build themselves back up, and I don't see that there. The problem for Notre Dame, to your point, is that they don't have a schedule, in my mind, that gives them enough runway to go out and get a bunch of signature wins. They don't have a chance to turn around and get like these huge moments. But Miami, at Miami, opening week of the season, will still carry gravitas with the committee, even if the team itself – even if Miami turns out to not be great. And one thing we have to acknowledge is the committee still matters to Notre Dame, right? Like there is a process where if you win the ACC, it doesn't matter. If you win the Big 12, it doesn't matter. If you're Notre Dame, you still got to finish, high enough to get into this college football conversation. So I do believe that there's a better path to Notre Dame to get into the playoffs because I think they'll be in contention. But weirdly, I don't think that their schedule will if they get beat 35-3 by Miami, I don't think they get the runway to make up for that.
And it is important to understand because I think that there is this false narrative that individual games are diluted or not as important in a 12-team college football playoff. It's important to remember, if we look back at last year, there was only one team in the 12-team college football playoff that lost week 1 that got into the dance, and that was Clemson, who lost to Georgia week 1. Now, I do understand some of those teams that were in the college football playoff, some of them played cupcakes week 1. So take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But when we have meetings of the powers this week, Texas and Ohio State and LSU and Clemson, in this game, Notre Dame, Miami, maybe in a different light, Alabama, Florida State, that it's important to acknowledge that individual weeks matter, that these games matter. Week 1, even though the college football playoff feels so far away, these games have massive college football playoff implications. It's not everything. There's still plenty of opportunity to dig yourself out of an 0-1 hole. But if history, at least it's a 1-year history, tells us anything, week 1 matters.
Which is why I'm so torn, Caroline. Like, if we're being honest, I want these matchups week 1. I do. But there is no preseason in college football. So all of a sudden, the teams that choose to schedule somebody, you end up in this situation where you're scheduling a massive opponent week 1. You're scheduling a big brand. You've got this rivalry moment, like all of these things that are great for the sport. But if you lose it, it does set you back a step. And there are other teams that are simply going to open with, the Central Connecticut, right? And by opening with the biggest cupcake they possibly can, they essentially get a preseason game. There's got to be some line here where we reward teams for taking a chance in week 1. And I don't know the fair and equitable, as we always say, fair is where a pig gets a ribbon. But at some point, college football teams are going to stop scheduling games like LSU Clemson. They're going to stop scheduling Miami Notre Dame if the risk doesn't make it worth the return. And that's real. Like, if I ran a college football program right now, there is not a chance in hell I would schedule a week 1 opponent that was worth anything. I would schedule the biggest cupcake I can and just put my guys on the field and let them knock off the rust, let them hit somebody else, and let them get better. And I would schedule tougher games as the season went on, because I don't know that there's a great reward for whoever loses this game, considering the sacrifice that they put in playing a real opponent. I don't know that the reward makes it worth it.
And that's my frustration with the current college football playoff model and how It's how it's selected. And there's going to be no perfect way to do it because when you're dealing with 132 teams that all have vastly different strengths of schedules, how are you supposed to standardize that? You can't. But that's what I fear is these matchups. Like we are talking about these games. This is the best week one in the history of college football. For the first time ever, we have a preseason number one versus a preseason number two. These games are what we fall in love with. These are the kind of early season matchups that make this sport so wonderful. So if you are constantly digging yourself out of a hole throughout the remainder of the season because you're trying to get back what you lost in week one because you played Ohio State or you played Alabama or you played Notre Dame, so on and so forth, why would you do it anymore? Like the SEC is expanding to a 9-game conference schedule. You're going to have more than likely, three permanent opponents. Well, if I'm a fan of an SEC team, I want my permanent opponents to be Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. Or, whatever, teams are at the bottom of the conference. Because what's the point of playing Georgia, Alabama, and Texas every year if that just makes your path so much harder? And if what matters on your resume is how few games you lose, make the path as easy as possible. I hate that, Fitz. I hate it because I love these LSU Clemsons, these Notre Dame Miamis. I want matchups between the heavyweights. I am so sick of Alabama playing St. Mary's School of the Blind whenever they have the opportunity to. But I don't blame them. I don't blame them for scheduling those kinds of games in the slightest.
Look no further than Dublin, where we saw Iowa State and Kansas State play an important game that mattered for the college football playoff, and it was sloppy, and it was ugly, and it was everything you don't want.
And it was beautiful.
But it was perfect. But also, we would have watched it if it was the School of the Blind versus Central Connecticut. Like, we would have watched it. So burn the games early, and then give us the good after that. All right, we'll keep you updated. We got more college football later in the show. We're going to break down the big matchup of the weekend. But coming up next, Caitlin Clark, is she going to make her return anytime soon? We'll break it down next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Caitlin Clark is participating in shoot-around this morning, going to warm-ups and some non-contact drills with the second team. She has not officially returned to practice, I'm told, but this her first time working with the team since her injury. Is Caitlin Clark about to make her return to the WNBA? She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz on Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline, I'm torn on this. Like, at some point, there are conspiracy theorists. Let's say this. There are conspiracy theorists that believe that Caitlin's injury, that the league knew a long time ago that she wasn't going to be able to make her return, And as a result, they just basically have been stringing us all along because the more that we talk about Caitlin, the more we pay attention. So there's an argument that if they've known all along, maybe she's not headed back to the court anytime soon. But we get these little nuggets, and it gives everybody hope. And I'm trying to figure out what they should actually do when it comes to putting her back on the court.
Yeah, the Fever have been incredibly tight-lipped about this for good reason. It's the best game planning tool that you can have. It's the best kind of, chip that you can have in your back pocket to make your opponents have to wonder and have to question what Caitlin's availability will be. And they announced, even though after she returned to non-contact practice, they did announce that she was still going to be out for the Fever's Tuesday night matchup against the Seattle, which they just absolutely clapped Seattle 95-75 win on Tuesday night without Caitlin Clark. I do not think that they should rush Caitlin Clark back from injury. But look, the Fever have an 88% chance per, ESPN statistics, have an 88% chance of making the postseason because of what they were able to do, not just with Caitlin, but how many games they were able to win without Caitlin. But it's not just about Caitlin. I mean, the Indiana Fever have been absolutely injury bitten, unlike any other team in the WNBA. They lost Sydney Colson to an ACL tear. They lost Ari McDonald to an injury, a season-ending injury, and Sophie Cunningham to a knee injury as well. The Fever didn't have a single healthy point guard for a decent bit after Ari McDonald and Sydney Colson went out with their respective injuries. So I do not think that the Fever should rush Caitlin Clark back because they're still shorthanded without those other three players. Now, I will make the argument for maybe people that would say, yes, Caitlin should come back from injury. It's, look, they're going to make the postseason. They have proved that they have continued to find ways to win. Like I just said, they had a 20-point victory over Seattle on Tuesday night. You're getting production from Aaliyah Boston, who had 27 the other night. Kelsey Mitchell continues to be absolutely outstanding. She had 21 the other night. Odyssey Sims has come in and been able to make some offensive production as well. So credit to the Fever and credit to Stephanie White, their head coach. They're continuing to find ways to win, not just without Caitlin, but without Sydney Colson, Sophie Cunningham, and Ari McDonald. So the argument might be, well, if the Fever make the playoffs, they've found ways to win without these injured players. If you add Caitlin Clark back in, not only can they win a couple of playoff games maybe that they weren't supposed to, maybe the Fever shock the world adding Caitlin back into this roster and they actually win a playoff series or can even make a push for the playoffs. I can see that argument, right? Because they're more than likely going to find themselves in the postseason. I just think if you're the Fever right now, everything is house money. Every game you can win is just with house money. You go into the playoffs, see if you can make some noise, but you hold back Caitlin Clark, understanding that that's going to help you more in 2026, more than it ever could in 2025, especially, let's say, if the Fever draw the Minnesota Lynx, the best team in the WNBA, in the first round of the playoffs. What does adding Caitlin do for you right now that's more valuable than what she can do for you in the long run at 100%?
That's where, look, I'll credit, to your point, their ability to remain competitive, but they're barely a 500 basketball team. And in their last 10 games, they're 4-6. This is not a team that's wildly hot. Like, you look at the Vegas Aces, they've won 12 in a row, right? Like, so if you're talking about a team that's hot, like if the Fever were on this just massive sprint, then I'd say, yeah, bring her back. If you can get her back on the floor, 80% of Caitlin Clark is worth it. But this is one of those moments where, to your point, we have to kind of question what the return means, right? Like, if she's coming back she's battled hamstring, groin injuries, all of this, and it feels like a kinetic chain issue where every time she gets back out, we're all holding our breath trying to figure out, can she be healthy? Is she the best of herself? The worst case scenario for the W is that a single second of this injury bug bites its way into next season. That is absolutely the catastrophic point here. And what did we just see? Like, we just saw in the NBA, guys getting back on the court that maybe shouldn't have been back on the court, and all of a sudden we get Achilles injury after Achilles injury. I don't even want to speak that into possibility with Caitlin, but the fact is, when you've had a year like she's had, where everything has just gone wrong from an injury standpoint, and you're trying to figure out how healthy she is, and you're trying to figure out how much you need Caitlin on the court, not just to be competitive, but for everybody to pay attention, I just think you also have to step back and say, okay, short-term versus long-term. Would it be great to have Caitlin in the playoffs short-term? Absolutely. It would lead to eyeballs in the first round. even if they got demolished by the Lynx. But let's not get it twisted. Minnesota is playing at a different level. Like, the Lynx belong in a totally different playoff team conversation than Indiana belongs in. So you'd be basically putting in the superstar of the league, the face of the league, for a Hail Mary attempt to try and remain relevant through one round of the playoffs. I would much rather play it so wildly safe. If I'm the Fever, I look around and say, man, this year the basketball gods said not you, right? So let's wait until next year when we get everybody healthy and try and give ourselves a real chance for a really competitive team for Indiana moving forward, to give ourselves the best chance to actually build towards a championship with Caitlin, which is what the W ultimately needs the most.
And look, I hate this for the Indiana Fever that they're even in this position, because the moves that they made this past offseason proved that they were capitalizing on this roster right here, and they were making a championship push. That they were putting veterans, championship caliber, championship winning veterans around this really young team to really shape them and mold them, and to be able to, kind of teach them by osmosis how to get through the grind of the season. But it was injury after injury after injury. Now, I say right now, knowing basically nothing about Caitlin Clark's status, just that she returned to shoot-arounds and non-contact practice, that I would continue to hold her out, because I think that next season is way more important than getting back let's just say, hypothetically, based off of nothing, let's just say she's 75%. Well, wouldn't you rather sit her until next season and get 100% Caitlin Clark, 110% Caitlin Clark? But I don't know her status right now. So maybe Caitlin is much closer to returning than we know and that the Indiana Fever are willing to let on. But just having close to no information about her injury where it is right now, I just say you don't risk it. Because what if, and I don't even want to say it to put it out there in the universe, but I will anyways. What if she further injures herself to where she's out for the next few months, or she's out at the beginning of the season next year, that she just continues to face setback after setback? Now, I wish that on not her. I don't wish that on anyone. But that is the risk that you face if you do rush Caitlin Clark back from injury. Again, the Fever are probably going to make the postseason. 90% chance, at least where it stands right now, to make the postseason. Go in there. You ride the ones that have gotten you through this injury, period right now. You ride it with Odyssey Sims. You ride it with Aaliyah Boston. You ride it with Kelsey Mitchell, who has been, if you haven't been tuning into what Kelsey Mitchell has been doing, she has been must-watch TV. You ride those players and see where they can take you. Everything else is just a cherry on top.
Shouldn't we be applying the NBA logic at this point, though? Like, I would argue that, okay, they have a 90% chance at the playoffs. Fine. They have a almost 0% chance at doing anything meaningful in the playoffs, in my mind. Like, the chances that Indiana is going to end up winning the WNBA this year, like, that's not going to happen, right? So the chances that they're going to make it to the final, that's not going to happen, right? So at this point, if I'm Indiana, what I really want, I don't want Caitlin. Like, at this point, I'm on the fringe of the playoffs. I'd rather lose my way into a better draft spot. I would rather lose my way into a better draft spot. Like, we are at that tenuous spot where, like, yeah, having the potential of Caitlin for one playoff series matters. I get that. Matters to everybody. But long-term to the growth of Indiana, like, wouldn't it be better if you're sitting right now and they're right in that middle section where a game or two makes a huge difference in where their draft standing would be? You're talking about the chance to get a much better draft pick if you miss the playoffs. Like, it's long-term, it's better for Indiana. This is the same argument we make in every other league. Like, when we reach this point in the NFL season, it's like, well, why bring your quarterback back? He's just going to win you enough games to hurt your playoffs or your draft seeding. Like, it's the same argument here. I think it's actually better long-term for the Fever if Caitlin doesn't play this year and you get a better draft pick.
And look, fair argument to be made, but the Fever, even without Caitlin Clark, even if they just keep riding with the team that they have, that they've been putting out there on the court, they're still not going to be as bad as the Wings or the Sky or the Connecticut Sun. Whatever the Fever do, they will continue to probably stick in kind of what I'm calling this mucky middle of the WNBA. At the top, you have the Minnesota Lynx, and they are up there and they are alone. And then there's kind of this jockeying for second place. The Vegas Aces literally cannot and will not lose. They have kind of jumped up the standings at the number 2 spot, but you have Atlanta, you have Phoenix, you have New York that are all vying for this second spot. And then you have Seattle and Golden State and Los Angeles and Washington and the Fever are kind of at the top of that group. They're going to be in that mucky middle no matter what happens. And I do hear you in terms of draft position. I just don't think that there are enough games left in the regular season for that to make all that much of a difference, where they're now in a window right now where they're making the playoffs. So you get in there and you try and do whatever you possibly can and win as many games as you possibly can and enjoy the ride doing it.
I look forward to going to another Aces championship parade. Bet to some. All right, from the WNBA to the NBA news that you need to know, Kevin O'Connor going to join the show next. Yahoo Sports Daily. That is Russell Westbrook hooping on a yacht. Oh, God. Like giving us the little moves, getting the zoom in. Oh, he's going. He's going to do the crossover. He's going to dribble a few times. Then he takes the one up. Shot goes in.
How many balls ended up in the water?
Oh, that's the question. Let's get some thoughts on it. We're going to welcome the host of the KOC show on Yahoo Sports Nobody podcast who writes about the league better than this guy. Thanks for being here. Kevin O'Connor hanging out with us for the first time on Yahoo Sports Daily. So we're having a lot of fun. We're excited for you. Do you actually wish that you were on a yacht shooting with Russ?
I'm not a boat guy, and I'm also not a Russ guy. I think, like Caroline said, I mean, probably he lost a lot of balls, I'm guessing, and in the sea there. I mean, with Russell Westbrook, it is kind of strange. I mean, like, it just shows the passage of time in the NBA. That on screen there, yes, exactly what it probably looks like. I think with Russ, it just shows the passage of time. It's weird that he's unsigned, and yet it's totally unsurprising considering his performance in recent years.
Whoever made that graphic ain't right. My goodness, he's
they're factually accurate.
The
that
balls
is
that went off the yacht. Okay, he's a free agent, like you said. He's been linked to the Kings. There have been rumblings about where he could end up, but let's look into KOC's crystal ball on today, August 28th. Where would you predict Russell Westbrook ends up?
I think the Kings make some sense because they don't really know what they're doing. So I think with that in mind, I think the Kings make perfect sense for Russell Westbrook because their roster, they have some really good young players. They drafted Nick Clifford this year in their first round, who was very impressive at Las Vegas Summer League. They last year drafted Devin Carter, who suffered a shoulder injury and hopefully gets a full year healthy. I like him a lot. I had him ranked in my top 10 last year. So I think with the Kings, like, they have good young players. It's just the veteran mix makes no sense. DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and then possibly Russell Westbrook, possibly Jonathan Kuminga. and trying to chase him as well still around Domantas Sabonis. Like, it is the opposite of what those Kings offenses were, the Beam Kings with Fox and Sabonis and Mike Brown as head coach. This is the opposite of that. It is your turn, my turn offense is what it looks like to me. And so, yes, Russell Westbrook would make perfect sense for that team, because nothing makes sense for the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, when you say it that way, like, I don't know, it all feels so pointless. Look, we like clicks. We like.
Well, they're going to miss the playoffs, Jason. They're going to miss the playoffs. They're not going to make it in the West.
That is, well, all right. So let's stick in the West for a second, because everybody loves talking about the Lakers. So let's talk about LeBron for a second. In the past, we've seen like all the Wash King hashtag, like all this motivational stuff. Now all I see on Twitter is that he's tweeting about golf. So, like, is there some indication in your mind that we see this like new casual LeBron that tells us something about his future? Like, is this the last year of LeBron, considering he seems like he's focused on golf at this point, which is fine. I'm just curious.
I don't know, until LeBron himself announces that this is my final season, I'm going on a farewell tour. I'm not gonna like speculate necessarily that it's his last season because of these signs. LeBron is the type, he's gonna like make a big thing about it. I don't think it's gonna be hints. It could be hints leading into an announcement, but until he announces it, I don't see it happening. To me, the biggest thing from this summer, in addition to these posts that you're talking about, golfing and whatnot, it's that meeting he had with Jokic's agent in Europe, and the rumors about him and Mav Carter and those guys joining together and starting a European league. Maybe LeBron, like, he could be done with the NBA, but go play in Europe for a massive amount of money for, X amount of years. So, I think with LeBron, until he announces it, it's very hard to say, because he's still great enough to play as long as he wants to, for still at this stage of his career in his 40s.
We start putting those European games on late at night, Stephen A is going to have to miss his bedtime to watch them. Okay, so let me get a follow-up on this, because there's a clip that dropped yesterday. All right, Clippers head coach Ty Lue told Shannon Sharp that when LeBron first heard about Kyrie getting traded to the Celtics, of all teams, he was in an autograph signing, okay? And he stopped signing for 10 minutes, sat in his chair looking up at the ceiling. We got the whole, he did the entire thing. We know KD changed the trajectory of the league forever going to Golden State, but does Kyrie's move get talked about enough on that level?
I don't think it deserves to be talked about on that level. I mean, Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, already a team that had won a championship, and then added 2 more championships and won 2 more finals MVPs. Whereas with Kyrie leaving the Cavaliers, he was ghosting his teammates near the end of that tenure. That's the reason why they traded him in the first place. It was meeting an end with Kyrie off his rocker at the time, and then he did nothing in Boston. It was a disaster. Like, I don't even think they're in the same category. Like, I'm unsurprised Ty Lue says that, because he's like directly involved with it, but like, KD going to the Warriors is one of the biggest moves in my lifetime as a sports fan. I don't think there's anything close to that level with KD deciding to go there of all teams. I mean, remember the shock we felt when he actually went to the 73-win Warriors? Crazy. I still can't believe he actually chose to do that.
Yeah, speaking of LeBron and the Lakers, since they won that championship bubble championship rather, it has just felt like it's an organization that felt identityless, felt visionless, felt listless for the most part. Now there's a shift in ownership. They signed Luka long term. Has your confidence in the Lakers, what you think the vision for the Lakers is that clearer, more optimistic now this offseason, or do you still have more questions about what this Lakers organization in the future might be?
I think it's still clear, because Luka is still one of the 5 best players in the world. Doesn't matter how out of shape he is. He could be the best player in the world if he's in shape and has the best season of his career. This could be his MVP season. So I think anytime you have a player of that quality, you know what the direction of your team is, and that's trying to compete for championships. They had that with LeBron when he was, still at his peak, and they have that now, especially with Luka and LeBron. So I think the direction of the Lakers is pretty clear. And I know that earlier in the summer, there's the stuff out there about how Pelinka, the Lakers GM, wants to wait until 2027 in order to start making big moves and all that. That very well could be the case. But I think if the right move is out there this season, just like it's been in recent years, he'll take that opportunity. And if Luka proves himself, it further increases the incentive to do that this year rather than waiting. To me, I read that as more of like a show us Luka, get in shape Luka, almost more than anything else with like LeBron and his desires to compete for a championship. That's just classic clutch, pressure on an organization trying to take advantage of LeBron.
But how are we supposed to view it from a Mavs standpoint now that we have skinny Luka, understanding that they may never have gotten that? Like, the Mavs may have always just had fat Luka, and fat Luka wouldn't be who skinny Luka. Like, I mean, there is some element of he's changed so much. How are we supposed to view it knowing that the Mavs just couldn't get that version of it?
I mean, people grow up at different rates. Like, the development is never linear as a person in your life or as a basketball player either. And so I think, with the Mavericks, maybe it would have happened this year. Maybe this summer, Luka would have entered the offseason and everything would have happened exactly the same way with the magazine cover and all of that. Maybe that would have all happened identically the same. But we don't know because he shockingly got traded and we are in the situation that we are. But I don't necessarily think that sometimes you have to fail multiple times in order to figure it out. And with Luka, maybe this was the final straw for him personally. And we'll see. I mean, look, like he looks like he's in good shape now. He said this week at Eurobasket how he feels like the biggest difference so far is that he's less tired. He's a little quicker. Like, we'll see. Like, can he keep the weight off all season? I know how that is during basketball season. And I'm just a writer type that at a keyboard talking into a microphone. It's harder during the season when you're doing more stuff, you're traveling more. It's harder to keep the weight off. Never mind when you're a professional athlete in hotel rooms, planes, bus rides, and everything else. We see that all the time. Like, to me, the question is, can he stay in shape come March, April into the playoffs rather than entering the season in shape in October? How does he keep it off over the full year? To me, is the real biggest question with Luka.
I just love that he's had Ozempic allegations. Like, that is so 2025 NBA.
That's when you know you're putting in the work. Whenever they accuse you of Ozempic,
that's when you know
you're doing the right things. Yeah, let's go.
That is a compliment. I feel like we are obsessed as a basketball society with getting Giannis out of Milwaukee. And I don't know why we are obsessed with that every single year. But we did hear that once he gets back from Eurobasket that there's going to be, more information about what Giannis's future could be. Do you expect Giannis to be a Buck this upcoming season, or could there potentially be some moves brewing behind the scenes?
I have no expectation that he's going to demand a trade before the season. I mean, he always could change his mind after spending time in Eurobasket and, having time to think about things rather than thinking about competing for Greece right now. Maybe he decides to make a move. Maybe something surprising comes up. We still have a ton of restricted free agents in limbo. The Warriors have still yet to have made a move this offseason, so there's still time. We've seen late trades in the summer before, as you mentioned with Kyrie Irving. That happened in August when he got traded from the Cavaliers to the Celtics. So there's always a possibility, but I've yet to hear anything of substance to believe that he's going to get traded before the season. I believe the Bucks did enough to at least look appealing to him to want to stay there at least through February.
Mm-hmm. All right, so an MVP in the hearts of many, Al Horford, still not signed anywhere. I guess two parts to this. Where's he end up, and does it surprise you that he's still on the street?
Not really. I mean, I think earlier in the offseason with Al Horford, there was rumblings that he was weighing retirement. And so with Horford, the fact that the Warriors are still waiting on the Jonathan Kuminga situation to work itself out, however it may, and that feels pretty dead at the current moment. I think until that is figured out, then we'll see what Horford decides to do. So it's like a domino effect with some of these remaining restricted free agents. And even then, at his age, he's about 40 right now. He very well could decide to wait until midseason and then choose the team that he wants to go to at that point of his career. It's deciding if he wants to continue or not. I mean, he's having another kid in December. So he's got, I think, his fifth on the way. So I think with Horford, he's got some life stuff going on. He's old. He's already won a championship. He's in the right to be patient and be especially particular in choosing where he wants to go and uproot his family.
Okay. So
Phillip Rivers of the NBA.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just gonna throw this in here though, because our producer Mike Goldfarb, every time we talk about the NBA, seems just absolutely dumbfounded that the Warriors and the Heat, teams like that, have done nothing. And we talk about Horford. I'm not even sure he's really a difference maker. But are you surprised that, for example, Golden State is just sitting still in this current market?
I think with the Golden State Warriors, this is kind of becoming a trend with them. With Lakeup, he's Joe Lakeup, the Warriors owner. It feels like he's waiting for the biggest fish. Like he's waiting for the star to become available, and then they put all their chips on the table to try to make the best offer for that player, whether Giannis, whether somebody in the future, whoever it is. So I think with the Warriors, that's the main priority here, and that results in them passing on the opportunity to trade for a Lauri Markkanen a year ago, not willing to put multiple pieces on the table because they're waiting for something bigger. And that was 1 year ago, and it was a similar type of thing that we're seeing this offseason. And so I think with the Warriors, I mean, look, they also made their big move already. They traded for Jimmy Butler in February. They got him on a discounted price because he pushed his way out of Miami and nobody else wanted a disgruntled malcontent on their team. And so with the Warriors, I think they're in a situation now. They made their move, and now it's about figuring out these other pieces, Jonathan Kuminga namely, and then stack up the pieces for a bigger move during the season. If I'm a Warriors fan, I'm really annoyed, though, because I watched them lose in the playoffs. I know they need more. I know Steph Curry and Draymond Green are near the end. I know Jimmy Butler's old. Like, this isn't going to last forever. If I'm a Warriors fan, I'm like, I'm not dumb. What are we actually doing here? Is the two timelines thing still actually happening and still failing? So if I'm the Warriors, if I'm a Warriors fan, I'm very itching for a move right now and getting kind of annoyed.
And maybe what could potentially be the biggest NBA offseason storyline, Rajon Rondo's flag football career. Apparently, he is the #1 flag football quarterback in the nation, which congratulations to him. Your thoughts?
Unsurprised. Rondo has always fancied himself as a great quarterback. Going back to when he was a player on the Celtics, those big three Celtics teams, they would play football at the gym sometimes, and Rondo was always the quarterback. And he was also just such a magnificent passer, of course, as a point guard himself. So no, I am totally unsurprised that Rondo was a great quarterback. He has always walked the talk, and here we are with him actually doing it. So it's very cool to see. And also it seems like his son is a good basketball player as well. There's video of him that went viral recently. Big month for Rondo out of nowhere. Rondo going viral twice.
Yeah, I'm looking for Rondo. Like he's out here trying to get that Olympic medal, because we all know that's coming around the corner, right? Like trying to get himself an Olympic medal. Look, you're a gold medalist to us, Kevin O'Connor. Be sure to check out the KOC show. My friend, appreciate you. Next time we'll have to talk about the guitars on the wall. I want the details. But always appreciate you hanging out with us early in the morning, my friend. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.
Appreciate you. Thanks for dropping by.
Greatness. All right. From the NBA, back to a huge weekend in college football. A matchup of the century. We'll break it down next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Look, when Kevin O'Connor can come on the show, you change things up a little bit. So we started the hour with KOC because we wanted the big NBA breakdown. But now we get to 3 points. Let's do what we do every single hour on this show, Caroline. 3 things that are on our mind. What's on your mind first, my friend?
I mean, we are just days away from Bill Belichick returning to the sideline and starting his collegiate career. Yet, the biggest storyline surrounding Bill Belichick in North Carolina is not football related. Instead, it is that his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, has filed for a trademark for the term gold digger. That's correct. That is right. You heard that correct. That we are talking about a Bill Belichick story and the term gold digger. So she filed a trademark for that term through their company TCE Rights Management, and her plan is to put that phrase on jewelry, necklaces, and keychains. She really has leaned into the criticism that she is dating her 49-year-old, her senior boyfriend, which is weird to call Bill Belichick a boyfriend, calling her a gold digger. First of all, this is embarrassing for Bill Belichick. That Bill Belichick has been a legendary coach. That Bill Belichick is in Canton. Bill Belichick is a Hall of Famer. Bill Belichick has won 6 Super Bowls as a head coach and 8 Super Bowls overall. And now we're talking about his girlfriend calling herself a gold digger. This is embarrassing for Bill. For Jordan Hudson, though, she's smart. She's a marketing genius. She is a business woman. She's saying, if everybody's going to call me this and everybody's going to call me a gold digger behind my back, then I may as well capitalize on it. I may as well create my own keychain and jewelry business and lean into all of the names that everyone is calling me, and I will make a quick buck doing it. You know what? Smart woman, Jordan Hudson. I'm just looking forward to the absolute soap opera that I believe this will be at North Carolina.
The 2 most surprising things about this, by the way, number one, I was stunned to find out that Kanye didn't already have some sort of a trademark on gold digger. You would think that would have happened already. And then the other surprising part about it, you're right,
Fair point.
Brilliant business, but according to the worldwide internet, Bill Belichick in his career made over $200 million coaching the Patriots. I would think your sugar daddy could take care of all these things. I don't know. But,
there can always be more, Fitz.
That's fair.
Rich people didn't get rich by saying I'm rich enough.
That is fair. I just learned I need to find a sugar daddy. Okay, let's get to my first point of the show, and that's a little Tommy Cutlets. We got a little bit of fun here coming on in the form of a third-string quarterback, likely, but the Patriots have claimed former Giants quarterback Tommy DeVito off of waivers. Now, Drake May is clearly the starter in New England. We all know that, and Josh Dobbs has done a nice job finding a real niche for himself in the NFL as a career backup. It's a great job to have. But bringing DeVito in at least gives them another quarterback in the room. It's curious. Does it say something about Josh Dobbs? Does it say something that they want to protect themselves in case there's trade value around Josh Dobbs? Somebody else need a backup quarterback? I don't know. But what I do know is I love the concept of Tommy Cutlets being in New England. If you ever needed a bigger indication that this is not Bill Belichick's Patriots, getting a guy that became just globally famous for everything other than really football over the course of a short stint as the starter for the Giants is sort of that. This is a great moment for Tommy, obviously, as he gets to continue his NFL career. And let's see what it looks like. He gets the opportunity now to work with somebody that is a renowned offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels, and that's a great part of the story. And frankly, I don't ever fault a team. You can't have enough quarterbacks in the room that you trust, so having 3, you claim them off waivers, take a look at him. If he works, great. If he doesn't work, well, at least you took a flyer on it. But most importantly, the question is, are we going to get Tommy Cutlets? Are we going to get his agent walking around? Are we going to get all of the phenomenon that has become Tommy DeVito around the Patriots? I kind of hope so. The Patriots got to hope he never sees the field because that would obviously be catastrophic for the hopes and aspirations for this team moving forward. But you become a sensation when you're a waived and likely third-string quarterback that people still want to talk about. It's fun. It's fun, Caroline. All right, let's get to the top point of the hour, and that is the return, as we do the Tommy Cutlets. That is the return of college football in the biggest, grandiose way that you could ever ask for. Texas, Ohio State, the game on Saturday. It's a noon kickoff, surprising to so many. It is early in the day. Like, we are essentially just punching college football in the throat from the outset, saying, watch us, pay attention. We get the first time ever, if you respect the coaches poll, that we get a number 1 versus number 2 on a Saturday afternoon of the first weekend of college football season. And it is time to break down the game. My friend, what is the most interesting storyline to you in this one?
Oh, there are a million storylines. Obviously, it starts with the young quarterbacks, and I know we'll talk on the quarterbacks in just a moment, but to me, from the Ohio State angle, it's how they follow up their national championship season. Because how does Ohio State replace both of their coordinators, their starting quarterback, who is their third leading rusher, their 2 other leading rushers in Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins? They lose Emeka Egbuka, who know he wasn't their leading receiver last year, but man, oh man, Emeka Egbuka, I don't think got nearly enough credit that he should have had last season at Ohio State. And they also need to replace 8 starters defensively. I think when I think about the Ohio State Buckeyes and their championship run last year, of course, Jeremiah Smith and those running backs were a massive part of the reason why Ohio State not just got to the national championship, but won a national championship. But their defense was their calling card. That was one of the nastiest defensive fronts that we saw in college football last year. So you replace not just 1, not just 2, but 8 defensive starters, and you have to replace your defensive coordinator. That's just a massive task. And I get it. It's Ohio State, right? They probably have 8 5-stars that could be plug-and-play players and instant starters and instant impact players at any school in America, Ohio State included. I do understand that, right? They collect a whole heck of a lot of talent in Columbus, Ohio. But it's asking a lot to do that against a Texas team that just invested $40 million, reportedly, into their roster. And one of the most genius offensive minds in all of college football, and Steve Sarkisian. So that is what I'm interested in, not just Ohio State in this entire season, but really against the biggest test of them all week 1 as Texas comes to town. There are going to be high expectations for this team and for this program, especially opening the season at home.
I think back to my conversation I had that you can check out on Yahoo Sports with on the YouTube page with Jeremiah Smith. And it was funny because I asked him if there's any difference in Ryan Day now that the Buckeyes have won a national championship. And he did actually say in a very real moment, he's like, yeah, like he's less angry. Like he's got less of an edge. You know, it's like sometimes last year you could just feel that he was always on edge. And like it seems like this year he's having a little bit more fun. Everything feels a little bit more loose. I don't know if that's good or bad. I honestly don't know. And I don't think saying I don't know if that's good or bad needs to be something I think we're comfortable saying about Ohio State for the first month of the season. Like, I think it's okay to say Brian Hartline is not expected to be the same offensive coordinator that Chip Kelly was, right? So Chip Kelly is the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL this season for a reason, right? Ohio State is replacing so much, to your point. And then you think about just the vibe and the edge and all of these things that are just a little different. Isn't it fair to look around and say, hey, what does this team look like when they come out? Like maybe they have a great advantage because they're hard to scout. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, all of these new things. Maybe they're hard to scout, but also maybe it's just a little disjointed. Like this is their first real opportunity to play football. And that's why the biggest storyline to me is which quarterback can come out and actually calm themselves down quickly enough to win this game. Take it a step farther. Which coach trusts their quarterback the most to win the football game? You're going to have to get key throws. And what did we see last year throughout the course of the season? If you watched Ohio State last year, as the year went on, Will Howard got more of the offense. Every single week, he got more trust from Chip Kelly. By the end of the year, it was very much running through Will Howard. But in the beginning of the year, it wasn't, right? Which coach is willing to put the ball in their quarterback's hands, their young quarterback's hands, and quickly say, Caroline, I need you to make a throw to win? Like Julian saying, no proof of concept. Arch Manning, very little proof of concept. And I understand that they're highly regarded recruits, but until I see something other than stars next to their name, I just don't know. I saw Jordan Rodgers yesterday say the tape doesn't match any of the conversation yet on Arch Manning. Isn't it fair to say right now there's so little tape on both these quarterbacks? Who the hell knows? Like, nobody right now can tell you definitively that Texas or Ohio State is better than the other because we don't know which one of these quarterbacks can handle the pressure of the moment of this game.
Anybody who says they know what Arch Manning is lying. And I don't think there's nearly as much conversation about Julian Sayin as there is Arch Manning, but still, I think Julian Sayin, he was a 5-star recruit and originally committed to Alabama and Nick Saban. And once Nick Saban retired, then he adjusted. But there's still, I think, a lot of hype surrounding Julian Sayin. There's just less of a proof of concept. And I listened to what Jordan Rogers had to say, what you're referencing, and he talked about how Arch Manning looked shell-shocked against Georgia in the SEC championship game. Frankly, I don't really know how you can say that, and I totally 1,000% understand Jordan Rogers has significantly more knowledge about the game and the quarterback position than I will ever have in my lifetime. But Arch Manning, to my recollection, wasn't asked to do very much against Georgia. He really just came in third and fourth and short kind of situations to run the football. And if he's saying that he looked shell-shocked against Georgia's defense, yeah, I get it. I'd look shell-shocked against Georgia's defense too. A lot of veteran quarterbacks look shell-shocked against Georgia's defense. So I do understand what he's saying 1,000%, that maybe what we have on tape, that the very limited sample size that we have on tape doesn't necessarily match the expectations. But is that more to do with what we saw on tape, or is that more to do with the lofty expectations? That Arch Manning is stepping into this role with the expectations of national championship, undefeated season, Heisman Trophy, first overall pick, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. Like, those are the expectations that Arch Manning has. Are those lofty? Yes, 1,000%. Is he going to meet those expectations? I don't know. I lean no, because that's crazy. But I do think that Arch Manning is going to be able to step in with the size, with the arm strength that we've seen, with the athleticism and the speed. We saw the speed on full display. And also the fact that Arch Manning has had the luxury that not a lot of quarterbacks have in this transfer portal day and age, and that was the ability to sit on the bench, to learn, to observe the coaching from Steve Sarkisian to Quinn Ewers, to be able to learn this offense, all of those things. Maybe all of that still isn't enough, but all of those things at least gives me optimism. That is Arch going to be the Heisman Trophy in the next coming, for the game of football? Maybe, but it does give me optimism that Arch Manning will be able to operate this offense well enough to make Texas a championship contender.
My question is just going to be, if you think he was shell-shocked, understanding that it was a conservative play calling approach when he was in the game against Georgia, is Sark willing to not be conservative from the outset at the Horseshoe against Ohio State? We will have all eyes on this game on Saturday, but there's a wild weekend ahead of college football that none of us can wait for, and we're going to get the breakdown coming up next from one of our favorite guests. We'll get the Vegas insights from Ben Fox. What do we expect this weekend in some of the biggest matchups in college football? We'll tell you next.
Can't get mad at God for making me look like him. That's what Nebraska quarterback Dylan Raiola said about Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, look, can't control my haircut. Can't control my facial hair. Can't control my glasses. Of course not. Why is everybody blaming Dylan Raiola? But all eyes will be on him tonight as Nebraska opens up week 1 against Cincinnati at Arrowhead. And joining us now to break down all of the action this weekend in college football is our friend Ben Fox. Ben, appreciate you for joining us. As always, let's start there. Dylan Raiola and Nebraska. Who is the public kind of high on in this game at a neutral site?
Yeah, religion and sports betting, right? They quite a combination here that we have to lead off the segment. Listen, really interesting game to kick us off here, the college football week 1 on Thursday night. And certainly Dylan Raiola, a lot of certainly looks like Mahomes, right? He's kind of leaned into that, certainly. And interesting, this game is played at Arrowhead as well. Nebraska, 6.5-point favorite. The public is all over Nebraska in this game. 80% of the bets, 85% at some sports books, 90% of the money on Nebraska as well. Interesting that in this spot, Nebraska as a favorite last season, 6-2-1 against the spread. Cincinnati 1-4-1 as an underdog. So they did play well in this situation last year. And Matt Rule typically in college year 3 has been kind of the season that his teams have taken off previously at Temple and at Baylor. So bettors expecting a strong start from Nebraska tonight.
Yeah, Raiola, by the way, just continue. Yes, you get your haircut different. You won't look like Mahomes. I'm just here to help. I'm just here to help. And it's the barber's decision, not God's. Okay, let's get into the game God's watching on Saturday. Texas, Ohio State. Obviously, Texas opened as a 3-point underdog against the defending champs, but now it seems like the Longhorns are now as short as +1.5. So why is everyone suddenly shifting to backing Texas?
Yeah, this is one of the games of the weekend, right? Certainly, it will be one of the highest handled games, the most bet on game. Probably would actually be a little higher if it was later in the day, right? So starting at noon, so they won't have as much time for the bets on Saturday to accumulate. But this obviously has been up for months, and this is the marquee game. It was interesting talking to a couple of sports books. There hasn't been as much sharp action kind of pushing this line down. Obviously, at +3, there was, but 2.5, 1.5, not as big a difference between those numbers. This is just a lot of public money on Texas. One odds maker told me it was one-way traffic on Texas. A lot of bettors on Texas on the money line as well. And as he explained, which I thought was a good point, you rarely see the number 1 team and you're catching plus money, right, on the money line. I believe ESPN research went back to 1978. This is the first time in week 1 that the number 1 ranked team was an underdog, right? So kind of a historic situation, obviously facing Ohio State, defending national champions, but for the number 1 team to be an underdog is a rarity. So the public kind of jumping on that. Another sportsbook said they had twice as many tickets on Texas, 5 times as much money on Texas. So right now, certainly the books looking like they'll need Ohio State. Still have some time up until kickoff in this one, but really just a fascinating game, both on the field and then from a Heisman perspective as well. You have Arch Manning, like you guys are talking about, the Heisman favorite. Odds makers don't think he'll probably move that far up if he has a really good game. Obviously, he could drop if he has a poor game. And same thing for Ohio State. You have Jeremiah Smith on the other side, the wide receiver. If he goes off, his odds could shift. And Texas, the favorite, right? The national championship, Ohio State right behind Texas, as you would expect. Most bets to win the national championship. They're at +450 as a favorite, and the most money at BetMGM. So everyone kind of all in on the Longhorns. Ohio State right behind them at +525 at BetMGM. Certainly a lot of bets and money on the Buckeyes as well. This is just a monster game. I couldn't be more excited to watch it on Saturday. I wish it would be Saturday already so this game can kick off.
Ben, I don't know what we did to be so lucky to have this game, to have all of the battles of the heavyweights that we have coming up this weekend. And of course, we'll get into all of those, but one that is not necessarily a battle of the heavyweights. North Carolina, TCU, Bill Belichick makes his return to the sidelines. Now, UNC was initially favored in this one. Now they're 3.5-point underdogs. Explain this line movement to me.
Yeah, so unlike kind of that Texas-Ohio State game we just talked about in terms of sharp action, pushing the line, a lot of sharp action on this game over the months in the offseason. This is a game UNC open anywhere, kind of 1.5, 2-point favorite, maybe even 2.5 at some sports books very early on. And this has been pushed all the way to UNC now as a 3.5-point underdog. One odds maker basically told me off of the respected action he's taken, he's lowered UNC's power rating 4.5 points just based off of that action. Again, this is just in week one. UNC has a win total of 7.5. Initially, there was actually some over money. I think people, hey, Belichick, back to college, a little optimism. But really, since the early summer, and as we've gotten close to the season, it's been all under money. This is now juiced heavily to the under at 7.5. So I think bettors really fading Bill Belichick, especially in the first game. This will be a really interesting game on Monday night. It will be one of the higher handle games. At one sportsbook said maybe all season, right? Standalone game Monday night on Labor Day. It's the only football game going on, so it's going to have a massive audience. It should be a spectacle. But the 7.5 as well, I will say, sharp bettors split to a certain extent. A lot of people like the under, but some told me they do have an easy schedule. So there is a way that they get over that total, even if they don't really have the season that maybe some are expecting with Belichick as his head coach debuting at UNC.
So, Ben, educate me for a second. If you're just a casual bettor that's listening to this entire conversation, when you see a massive movement on a line, like a line just starts to shift one way or the other right before the game, what should that tell you?
So typically that'll tell you in a game like this, right, that respected bettors, which are bettors that move the line, the bookmakers respect their action, meaning that, hey, they bet, let's say, TCU at plus 1.5. They're going to move that towards TCU because those bettors are going to be right more often than they're going to be wrong. So off of just a couple of bets, the line can move, whereas typically the public doesn't move the lines that often. Obviously, if there's an overwhelming amount of action, like we've seen in Ohio State, Texas, sometimes that will move a little bit. But for a game to flip the favorites, that's a lot of respected action on one side. And that's what we've seen in UNC TCU game.
One game we haven't really seen a ton of movement on, it's been pretty kind of exactly where it's been over the last couple of months, is another battle of the heavyweights, and that is LSU heading to Clemson. We've got two potential Heisman Trophy candidates. We've got two coaches kind of with different philosophies facing off in a massive game with massive college football playoff implications. Clemson is a 4-point favorite at home. Has the public kind of been siding with the home favorites, or do road dogs run faster?
Yeah, another really interesting game, another game that should have a tremendous handle, another game that has huge Heisman implications. One bookmaker said he actually thought this game would have more implications on the Heisman market than Texas-Ohio State, just because if Cade Klubnik or Garrett Nussmeier has a really good game, that potentially, along with a bad game, probably from Arch Manning, could vault them into either the Heisman favorite or closer to it. So I would just say Arch Manning is the Heisman favorite, but that market is going to move all over the place throughout this season. This game's really been toggling between Clemson 3.5 and 4-point favorite. It was as low as 3. You've seen some sharp action there on Clemson -3, pushing that up, and some action on LSU +4, pushing that back down. It is -4, I believe, at BetMGM, -3.5 at some other books. So it's kind of been bouncing back and forth between that. Public a little more on LSU, I would say, both in money and ticket count. But again, this is just going to be another really good game. Like you said, what do we do to deserve this weekend of week one of college football? It should be awesome.
Ugh, just how lucky are we? But looking at this matchup, it's two teams who have expectations to get to the college football playoff. Same thing with Texas, Ohio State. Same thing with Notre Dame, Miami. But last year, only one team that lost in week one actually did end up getting to the college football playoff. So just looking kind of at a broad spectrum, how could some of these games affect the playoff lines and the playoff odds?
Yeah, so sportsbooks keep these up, right, all season. And so it's kind of essentially like a stock market, right, where you can buy and sell throughout different points. And I think depending on the game, right, both of these games, you would expect all four teams to be in the mix, right? Texas, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU. So there is a world of thinking that people would have that you might want to buy quote unquote low, right? And bet on the loser of one of these games because they're probably going to make the college football playoff. And by the time they get there, right, much like Ohio State, we saw Notre Dame, right, didn't lose week 1, but after their bad loss, kind of rolled off a bunch of wins, and they were playing much better towards the college football playoff. So much like in the NBA or other sports, we've seen it in the NFL too, it matters how you're playing going into the college football playoff, and obviously that you have the resume to make it. But that's really what's important. I think obviously teams 0-1, you don't want to start that way, but the committee knows too that you're playing a difficult opponent as well. So that is taken into account. And let's be honest, we tend to forget week 1 when we get towards week 10, 11, 12, that loss. It was like, oh, they lost week 1 against Clemson. Yeah, it was all the way back in week 1 versus that kind of Michigan, Ohio State, the last week of the season tends to loom a little larger in the voters' minds.
Ben, the Tide are expected to roll. Nobody's ever said that before. Against Florida State this weekend. Thank you so much. A 2-touchdown favorite. Remember when Florida State was good? All right, so we know Florida State's not good, but what are the expectations for Alabama in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer?
Yeah, has there been a quieter offseason? I think for Alabama, right, in the national pantheon and just discussion, like this is a team that is right there. They have the 3rd best odds to win the SEC. 10-1, they're right there, 5th favorite, I believe, to win the national championship at BetMGM. So they're expected to be good. Alabama doesn't lose 3 or 4 games in a season. That's typically 3 or 4 seasons worth of losses that we saw under Nick Saban. So I think this team's been slowly just kind of, everyone's been talking about the other teams. They're in the background there. And listen, they're going to be ready. This is a game that you always want to be careful when bettors think it's kind of the free bingo square. But this is where everyone is putting the Alabama money line in every parlay. And there's been just a ton of action on Alabama, the spread, right? This is 13.5 at some books, up to 14. One bookmaker said he wouldn't be surprised if this crosses the key number of 14, gets to maybe even 14.5. This is just, everyone is betting on Alabama, expecting that big win. And I believe there's been a little trash talk from the Florida State quarterback as well, which is never necessarily what you want, to poke the bear in the first game. So this is 80% of the bets, more than 80% of the money on Alabama to cover. So I think bettors are certainly expecting this as one that'll be a blowout. Whether that comes to fruition, we'll see, but higher expectations certainly for Alabama. And I think they're being slept on a little bit in that college football playoff and national title market.
Yeah, Thomas Castellano saying, hey, the toughest defense I'm going to see all year is the defense I see in practice. Yeah, no, pretty sure Alabama's is going to be better. Plenty of NFL talent on that Alabama roster. So let's transition to the NFL. You tweeted about a $50,000 bet that was placed on the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. What is the general vibe around the Bengals from a betting perspective?
Yeah, the Bengals are another fascinating team. So I will say, Fitz, there are now 3 reported 7-figure liability wagers to win the Super Bowl. So that means if the bet wins, the bettor would win at least $1 million. This one was $50,000 on the Bengals at 20-1. The other 2 on your Las Vegas Raiders, as we had discussed.
Come on now.
One to win $2.5 million. Yeah, one to win $1 million. So two big shots. I don't know if Fitz got out to Vegas or what happened, but those are our 3 7-figure wagers. The Bengals are fascinating, right? Because you would expect really good offense. We talked about last week, Joe Burrow leading the MVP market in terms of total bets and total dollars wagered at a couple sports books, despite Lamar Jackson being the favorite. The Bengals are supposed to be good. It's just that defense, even as they signed Trey Hendrickson, they were so bad last year. Questions on the offensive line. So we've actually seen the Bengals win total opened at 10.5, down to 9.5. More money on the under at BetMGM, more bets on the over. So some of that bigger money on the under. They're going to be a really interesting team. They probably should still make the playoffs, have the 7th best Super Bowl odds at 20-1, and a lot of people betting on them to win the Super Bowl as well. It's just that question mark of the defense. But if you think the offense is that good that they can overcome the defense, then obviously people are taking a shot. 20-1 for a very good quarterback in Joe Burrow, I think, is why people are looking at that. But man, that AFC playoff race is a gauntlet, and you're going to need at least a half-decent defense to get past the Ravens, Chiefs, and Texans, some of those other teams.
You know, Ben, when the Raiders win the Super Bowl, I'll just get my private jet to pick Caroline and you up, and we'll celebrate all of my millions of dollars of winnings. Vegas needs to stop telling on me with those big bets. There we go.
Caviar
Ben
and
Fox, we
champagne on
appreciate you.
Fitz.
Well, no. You got to provide your BYO champagne. Bring your own BYOC. Like I'm giving you the jet. I'm not giving you the accoutrements, too. Let's go.
Right,
Ben,
fine.
we
Fair,
appreciate
fair.
you hanging out with us so much. Enjoy your morning. Thank you so much for the insight. We'll see you again soon.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
All right, so from betting to scrolling, get to some of the best on social media you might have missed. We'll do it next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Again, if you're just tuning in, we're with you every single day from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Caroline, it's time to have a little bit of fun. All right, we've gone through all the different sports world news that we can go through today. Everything's been wildly packed with tons of information. Hope you hang out with us every day. But it's time now to do some doom scrolling. Just like we do at the end of the night, we do it at the end of the show. It's time to go scrolling and see what we've got out there in the world of the worldwide internet, including Jokic. I mean, just absolutely. Eurobasket is just being dominated by one Nikola Jokic.
I have now at the top of my bucket list to go to a Serbian basketball game because not only does Eurobasket look absolutely electric, have you ever seen videos of Serbian basketball games? I mean, they're on their feet. It's like a college football game. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, like Jokic is dominating Eurobasket. Jokic dominates the NBA. Jokic dominates horse racing. What doesn't Jokic dominate is the question.
The real answer here is that Caroline Fenton has decided she's going to honeymoon in Serbia to watch basketball. I'm sure that will go over well.
It's a hot spot. Actually, bachelorette party in Serbia.
Okay. I'd just love to see, like, when you send that invite. One person that would definitely get the invite to the bachelorette party, Dawn Staley. By the way, she revealed that she interviewed for the Knicks head coaching position and would have taken the job if it had been offered to her. Pretty stunning admission there from Coach, to be so honest.
Yeah, well, Dawn Staley has talked about that in the past, about, potentially coaching at the WNBA level. And she was very forthright in saying, I want to coach in college. I like developing young players. I like kind of morphing them into a professional player and then watching them thrive at the next level. But she even said, look, it's the New York Knicks. When the Knicks come calling, you don't say no. And Dawn Staley is from Philadelphia. She is a very proud Philadelphian, I think is the right word to use. Yeah. She's a huge Eagles fan. She's like, look, I can't be from Philadelphia and go to New York, but still, it's the Knicks. It's the Knicks. And look, I don't blame her. When the Knicks come calling, you got to come answering.
Yeah, and there will be a first at some point. I would go back to Spurs players I talked to that were on the roster at the time that Becky Hammond was a bench coach for them, and they'll tell you that coaching is coaching and respect is respect. So
Yeah.
Dawn Staley is going to be at some point. I hope she gets another opportunity to be the trailblazer because at some point somebody will. Next up on the scrolling news and notes, a new era for Colorado football. Deion Sanders tabs transfer Caden Salter to succeed Shedeur Sanders. Of note here, he beat out 5-star recruit, true freshman Juju Lewis, somebody that, at one point was committed to USC and then transferred to Colorado. A lot of people thought that Juju was absolutely going. I mean, his recruitment was hot, heavy, and expensive. So interesting to me that, somebody with more experience, they bring in the dual threat guy that has some experience at Liberty. But Caroline, I think this was it'll be interesting to see how this plays throughout the year because Juju was certainly somebody that a lot of people thought would get this job.
Yeah, and Caden Salter was also a very highly recruited quarterback in his own right. He didn't start at Liberty. He actually started at Tennessee and then went to Liberty to kind of get some more opportunity. So he has experience in college football. And look, I wish Caden Salter nothing but the best. I think my question, though, is does Colorado have enough around him? We knew the offensive line when Shedeur was there was not great. And they didn't just lose Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, which are two massive losses. Colorado also lost some other offensive talent to the NFL draft. So what is around Caden Salter and what does this post-Shedeur Travis Hunter edition of Colorado look like? I'm excited to see what Prime does with this roster.
Yeah. By the way, new offensive line coach too. So let's see if that helps shore up some of those issues that are significant for Colorado. Next up, as we doom scroll throughout everything that's out there, Carlos Alcaraz buzzed his hair. Look, as somebody that shocked, I can speak to this. Like I've had this haircut for most of my life, right? I came in, over the fall one day, just came in and I shaved my head completely. It's jarring for people, but I like it. I like the buzz cut. It's got a seriousness. It's got a gravitas to it. Come on.
I love it. I mean, he just went from friend zone to that guy that she told you not to worry about. I mean, if I was teeing off against Carlos Alcaraz post, buzz cut, I'd be terrified. I'd be tinkling in my pants, Fitz. I mean, that's a scary looking man right there with the haircut. Not really too intimidating with hair, but without hair, my goodness.
Yeah, I grew it back out because I admittedly looked like an inmate. So probably not the best look for me. Frank Schwab, our resident bald friend at Yahoo Sports, told me, nope, it's not for you. All right, let's go next to this photo from the U.S. Open. 1 in a million shot. Look at that. Look at that. That's amazing.
We do not give enough credit to sports photographers because you think about it, some of the most iconic moments in sports, I mean, they have been memorialized forever. If you walk in to anybody's, a sports media person's office or a man or a woman cave or just a sports fan's home in general, it is littered with photos that are classics from their favorite teams or from some of their favorite athletes. So credit to sports photographers for capturing some of the most iconic moments in history. This one is insane. It is insane.
Chef's kiss to that one. Chef's kiss to this graphic on the tweet about the rumors of the SEC expansion. North Carolina and Virginia are attractive to both the SEC. I mean, I just like Bill Belichick, attractive. Like that says everything.
Yeah, just take that out of context. Take the tweet away. Don't even look at the tweet. Just look at the photo. That photo of Bill Belichick looking awfully, stout in that little quarter zip there with sleeves. Oh, it's a new thing. Just as attractive.
Look, I'll go back to earlier.
Some 24-years on the market. That is for show.
I mean, according to the Google machine, he made over $200 million in his career. Yeah, that doesn't really matter at that point what it looks like. The wallet is stuffed. It's very attractive. Bill Belichick, very attractive is the real takeaway there. And also, we're never going to stop talking about college football playoff expansion and apparently conference realignment, even when we get games. All right, let's get one more in here.
Question, Fitz.
I love this.
Why would Virginia be attractive? I don't understand that.
I'm with you. I'm not with this guy. I'm scared of heights. That is an actual person sitting on top of the score. Like, how'd you get up there? How did you get, what parkour weirdness was that where it's like, I'm just going to be one of those ultimate extremists that climbs my way to the top of the scoreboard to just sit and watch?
Yeah, that is the question. How did he get up there? Are there stairs on the side of the scoreboard? How does he get down? Is he just going to watch the entire game up there? Did he have a ticket? Did he climb up from the outside of the stadium? I have so many questions. We need to get him on Yahoo Sports Daily.
What's the view like, too? You took all that risk to climb all the way up there, and you got the guys there bitty on the football field.
Can't
I don't
even
understand
see the ball.
We will be back tomorrow morning for a Friday edition of Yahoo Sports Daily. For Caroline Fenton, I'm Jason Fitz. Come back tomorrow, 9 a.m. We appreciate you hanging out with us.